Okay, V-wires. Okay, everyone. So in this video, we're going to discuss V-wires, and you want to take advantage of V-wires. And the reason why is, say you don't need to have the Palo Alto routing being a router hop. You don't need the Palo Alto to route traffic on your network. You just want to apply security policies for inbound and outbound traffic between a VLAN to the outside. For example, if you have a VLAN that wants to communicate to the outside, you want to apply specific policies to that VLAN. You can do it this way without having another routed hop. In this case, we're gonna perform some V-wire configurations. We're gonna build a V-wire sub interface because we want to take advantage also of not having multiple interfaces assigned to different V-wires. And the way that you do that, it's you allocate a physical interface as a V-wire interface, and then you connect that virtually, and that's the V-wire. So the V-wire, what it does is connects to physical interfaces, and what you're doing in between, it's adding a virtual cable, like I say, a virtual link that allows that to communicate. So the firewall will work in transparent mode. It will enforce traffic, but your user or your network will not know that you're passing through a stateful firewall. So with V-wires, I can assign sub-interfaces or virtual wire interfaces onto zones, and then I can put police to traffic. I can put security rules between the two V-wire instances. So we're going to do a demonstration of how you can do V-wires, and it's very straightforward. So let's go ahead and begin. Okay, so this is our scenario. We're going to create sub-interfaces in our virtual wire physical interface. So we have a topology here. We have one switch. This is our distribution switch right here. And we have, by the way, this is a school. So we have VLAN 10. All the students are actually in VLAN 10. So this access switch or distribution switch connects to all of our access switches. And VLAN 10 communicates using this trunk interface that goes over Ethernet 1/5 on the switch, going to the Palo Alto on Ethernet 1/2. This interface, Ethernet 1/2, is configured in virtual wire mode. We're going to configure this in virtual wire mode, and then once we have that, because this is a trunk, we're going to make a sub interface and tag it on VLAN 10. So we then can police that particular VLAN whilst leaving the other VLAN still flowing without issues. So we want to make sure that we police VLAN 10 by creating a virtual wire sub interface on the same physical sub wire interface. And when it comes to virtual wires, this blue dotted line, this represents a virtual wire. So the virtual wire, basically it's connecting or binding Ethernet 1/2 virtually to Ethernet 1/5. So I'm inside the Palo Alto, I'm basically bridging those two interfaces, Ethernet 1/5 and 1/2, with a virtual wire. So I'm actually cross-connecting both of them, connected logically. So they're actually connected using this virtual cable. Benefit of doing this is that now I can assign a zone to the ingress traffic, which is the traffic that comes from this interface, and then add another zone to this interface. So I can police traffic inbound and outbound of my firewall for VLAN 10. And again, there's no routing happening on the Palo Alto. This is completely transparent. This switch sees this switch completely transparent end to end. So for the switch perspective, they just see a patch going to this side. Obviously on the Palo Alto, we can prune protocols. So for example, you can allow LDP, but block STP. So the Palo Alto can also filter that. But for this instance, we're just gonna go ahead and connect using a virtual wire, Ethernet 1/2 and 1/5. And then we're gonna make a policy that will allow this VLAN 10 to reach the core. And we're gonna have the default gateway for VLAN 10 configure on the core. So this switch will have an interface on VLAN 10, and this core will have the default gateway for the student wired subnet, and this switch right here should be able to ping this default gateway once we build the virtual wire sub interface and we apply the policy to allow this traffic go through. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin, and we'll go from there. Okay, like I show you on the slide, we have this distribution switch, And this distribution switch is on VLAN 10. I have a sub-interface, a VLAN interface on VLAN 10, and the IP address is 10.10.02. I also have the core switch, which is 10.10.01. And we mentioned that we have that going towards the Palo Alto. So the Palo Alto, it's right in the middle between those two switches, the distribution and the core. We're going to go ahead in the Palo Alto, we're going to configure virtual wire, we're going to link those two interfaces together, and we're going to configure the policies, and we should be able to have IP reachability end to end. Let's go ahead and go to the Palo Alto. And the first thing we're going to do, we're going to go to Network, Interfaces, and we're going to select Ethernet 1/2 and 1/5. Those are my two interfaces, and if you like, we can go back onto the Visio diagram. And like I mentioned, distribution switch, the IP is 10.10.02. Core switch is 10.10.01. And we have Ethernet 1/2 on the Palo Alto, and this is our ingress interface from my VLAN 10, the student wired VLAN, and my egress interface will be Ethernet 1/5. We're going to make both of them virtual wire interfaces, and we're going to apply the policies, and we should be able to ping end-to-end between the distribution and the core switch. And that will tell us that we have reachability because we're allowing traffic on the Palo Alto. Okay, so let's go ahead and configure this as virtual wire. So we're going to click on the interface. Once inside, we're going to change the interface type into virtual wire. Okay, very important. When we're working with sub-interfaces, the parent, and Palo Alto refers as the parent virtual wire interface, the physical interface that you're making a virtual wire, where you're going to be configuring those sub-interfaces, this is called the parent virtual wire. You're not going to make any configurations, just make it change personality to be a virtual wire, and that's it. Because you need to have the physical interface just in virtual wire mode, but no specific configurations to it. Only on the sub interfaces is where you're going to configure the specific VLAN tags. It's very important. This is just an interface type. Press OK. We're going to do the same thing with 5. Okay, and once in, same thing, virtual wire. And again, nothing here because this is my parent virtual wire interface. Okay. And now we should be able to make sub interfaces on 1/2 and 1/5. So you're going to do VLAN 10 on 1/2 because we want to do the student wired VLAN as our first example. And then we need to do a mirror configuration of this sub interface here and here. So let's go ahead and make a sub interface by clicking add sub interface, add a tag of 10, and okay, IP classifier. When you're making a virtual wire interface, that is an untag interface, meaning that you're not tagging a specific VLAN onto it. You can add an IP classifier, so you can say, well, anything that matches this particular IP address on the packet flow, treat it as XYZ traffic, and then you can police the traffic based on IP address. In our case, we're just tagging the VLAN, so anything that flows onto those interfaces and has a tag of 10, we're gonna just treat it as this particular sub interface. Now, we're gonna make a security zone. It will be related only to 1/2.10, and this will be our student wire ingress. And I'm gonna show you in a bit so you can all connect the dots and understand how this works. We're gonna go ahead and configure a security zone, and we're going to make a virtual wire in a bit, but for now we just want to configure the interfaces, and then we'll go ahead and configure the virtual wires. Okay, security zone, and in this case we're going to make it student vwire because this is our ingress, right? We're going to press OK, and that's it. Press OK again. Now we have the first one. So we got to do the same thing here because it's always going to be tagged from 2, and you got to keep it the same way. The Palo Alto will not be able to tag it. You got to make sure that you keep it tagged the same way as it came in and needs to go out. So on 5, add a sub interface, put .10, tag it with 10. Security zone, this is the big difference. We're ingressing in 1.2, but we're egressing in 1.5. So we're leaving the Palo Alto in 1.5, but we're actually ingressing, we're coming in the Palo Alto in 1.2. So this will be the egress for the student VLAN. Go ahead and create another security zone. And we're going to call this student vwire egress. We're going to press OK. Press OK again. Okay, so now we have both of them configured with the respective sub interfaces. Now, We got to make a virtual wire so we can connect them virtually in the Palo Alto with this cable right here. We're going to make that blue dotted line. And we're going to connect Ethernet 1/2 and 1/5. How will that work? Number one, we got to connect the parent virtual wire. Remember, the parent, this is physical interface that you convert into virtual wire mode. And then we'll also add the sub interface on another vWire configuration. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and click virtual wires. We'll click on add and name. We're going to do the parent vWire. This is our parent vWire interface. The physical 1/2. You see, I am not selecting my sub interface. I am first selecting my physical interface. So we're connecting 1/2 to 1/5. Link state pass-through. This is very important. Okay, right now, if I do this, 1/5 will become online. And if 1/2 for some reason goes down, 1/5 remain up. So your switch will not know that the other end of my patch cord, because remember, we're doing a virtual wire between the two, they think that they're going end to end. The patch cord is just going end to end. But by doing link state pass-through, enabling this, it will actually bring the other side down. So if my distribution switch goes down, the Palo Alto will see that this interface came down, and it will bring this guy down again. It will disable this interface. It will tell the core, hey, you just lost that distribution. So it's going to show as the switch actually went down. And this avoids having the core up, going to the distribution, but then the distribution is down, and it makes troubleshooting a little bit more difficult. So this is very important. Press OK. And now we're going to do the same parent for the second interface. Add virtual wire, and then this is our VLAN 10 sub interface, and then we're going to select now the sub interface, the ingress first, and then the egress. Okay, and tag allowed, we don't need to add anything to tag allowed because we're already tagging it on the interface. Press OK. So now we got the interfaces, the virtual wire connection. So we're connecting virtually 1/2 to 1/5, and then we're connecting virtually the sub interface 1/2, 10, 1/2, 1/5, 10, sorry. And yeah, once we do this, we should have that connectivity happening on the background. Okay, now, in order for us to have connectivity, because we just isolated this VLAN 10 section to this VLAN 10 section, the ingress has been isolated from the egress. We're going to make some security policies for this. Go ahead and policies. And then on security, we're going to add, and again, we're discussing security on our next section. We're going to just deep dive into security policies, so don't worry about it, okay? Name, we're going to say students to the outside, because they want to go to the outside to the internet, and they got to pass through the Palo Alto in order to hit the core switch. So we're going to go to source and add my zone, and we want to add that ingress student vWire interface. This says 1/2.10. Destination, obviously, the egress, because we want to go out of the Palo Alto, and then application, everything else default, and make sure that it's allowed. Click OK. Let's do the same thing for backwards. So if for some reason the core wants to communicate to this VLAN interface and the traffic originates from the core side, then you want to allow the same thing backwards. So the egress becomes the ingress. Core to student VLAN 10. Source, this case, will be the egress. Destination, ingress. We'll leave this as default. We'll press OK. And now, we should be able to have everything in place, and we should be able to ping end-to-end. So let's press commit. Once that's done, we'll give it a shot and we'll test. Okay, it's done. Okay, moment of truth. Let's take a look and see how that goes. Let me pull my distribution, and we should be able to ping 10.10.0.1. Let's take a look at that. Boom, and we got reachability. Okay, how do you know that I'm actually passing the Palo Alto? Great question. Let's go ahead and go to the Palo Alto, and let's take a look. So, in every single security policy, you have a head count on the end. If I was hitting policy, or my traffic was actually matching this policy, I should be able to see this incrementing. It's 0, but let's do a refresh and see if that changed. And there you go. We're seeing a hit count of 4. And I believe 4 is the total of ICMP responses that we got. So there you go. We got 1, got 2, 3, and 4. And if we go back to the Palo Alto, we have 4, and then let's refresh, and it stayed at 4. So let's do another ping and see how that goes. We go ahead and up arrow, and now we have 5 hit counts. We should have 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's go ahead back and let's do a refresh and see if that incremented. There you go. You got 5 extra, total of 9. So that's how you know that this vWire interface is passing traffic in and out. Now I want to do the same backwards. I want from the core ping my distribution, and I will be coming from the egress, and I will be going to the ingress. So I should be able to see this incrementing. And let's confirm. We don't see any increments. Let's go ahead and trigger so we can see some increments happening. Go back here, and now we're going to ping .2, which is my distribution side. There you have it. Now we have 5 ping responses, so by ICMP probes. Let's take a look. Let's go back on Palo Alto, and let me refresh. And there you go. Now we got the 5. Easy, huh? Alrighty. So once this is done, you can continue doing the same, the other sub interfaces, and there you go. No routing whatsoever. Palo Alto is basically transparent. Once I have this, I just need to add my subnets and classify specific traffic, and the traffic or the path doesn't know that it's passing through a stateful firewall. So this is a very good way to police the traffic while keeping everything simplified. Okay, so we reached the end of section 3. We're beginning section 4, and in this section we're going to discuss security policies, routing contexts, NAT and NAT options. This is a fun one, so let's go ahead and get started on section 4, and thank you for watching.